So we're looking at who is our ideal target audience that we want to reach with the Army of Youth. We just watched this video that is explaining how important it is to actually choose who we are serving. And the three questions were, who do you want to work with, who do you not want to work with, and where are they congregating? But we were talking about before we just hit live, we were talking about how before, Kamran, would you like to repeat what you said about what you used to think and now it's starting to make more sense?
Okay, yeah. So what I used to think was that when you're making content and you're looking for people, you're developing your audience and you're following, that you're just at the mercy of whoever just stumbles across your stuff. But what I've been learning is that in order to really make some real growth and in order to have a bigger impact, you need to have a specific audience. And that doesn't detract from your influence, but it actually enhances your influence.
Mm-hmm.
But not only that, it's not only important to pick and define the kind of people you want to reach, but also to define the people you don't want to reach, because when you're attracting people that you don't want to be reaching, that you don't have the skill set or the talents or the ability to...
That's right, to serve
at
the highest level.
At the highest possible level that you can, then there arises problems, and I think it can become taxing.
It is extremely taxing. That's so true. It makes a lot of sense. I was thinking too, at first, the thought comes to the mind, it's but what I have can help everyone, or everybody needs this. And even if that statement is true, it's impossible for us to reach everyone. You can't market to everyone. You either, you can be a lot to some, if you end up trying to be all things to everyone, you end up being nothing to no one. And that is it's really eye-opening. And I think a lot of it too has to do with perhaps the internet, and how the internet the internet is information, that it's all grouped, all the content is grouped and clustered by topics, by common interests, and so people congregate online in all sorts of different locations. I guess it's not with the internet, because that's true in the business world too. When businesses niche, it's the niche. There's a phrase, the riches is in the niches. Any specialist makes far more than the generalist. You look at the general doctor, they might make $50 an hour or something, but then you look at someone who specializes in brain surgery, not just a general surgeon, but a brain surgeon, they're gonna command $200 an hour or something drastically different. The specialists are always the ones who are earning more than the generalists. So that's that power of niching down. And so when I was realizing that, I was like, wow, that's powerful. Another thing too is something that hit me is if when we have an avatar and every single thing that we are speaking is talking to that individual, it's a person, it doesn't represent a big group of people, but an avatar is one person that represents that, then it's if I'm talking to you, I'm going to talk to you about things that I know you're interested in. I'm going to talk to you about common interests and experiences, whereas I had a neighbor that was an ultra marathon runner. It's when I'm talking to him, I'm going to be talking to him about different things that I know that he's interested in. But if I talk to you, what's incredible is when dealing with content and videos and trainings and messages and messaging, and all marketing is communicating a message with a purpose. then it's like I could be speaking to you about things that you and the ultramarathon runner are interested in, but as soon as I start talking about like some ultramarathon specific thing, you're going to check out. You're going to be like, oh, this is not for me. But if you're trying to be all things to everyone, then you're not able to connect as closely as you could if you were specific on who you're trying to reach. And a lot of people get this scarcity mindset. They're thinking that if I niche, then I will not be able to, I'm going to run out of people. There's not enough people that are interested in this. But I saw this illustration. This guy was Googling pumpkin farmers, and he looked up on pumpkin farming. He's like, watch, I will prove to you just a random thing, never done this before, but he did pumpkin gardening, and he found an entire website, a forum just dedicated to people who grow pumpkins. And there was like 90,000 people that were on there. It was an active, it was a poppin' place. And he was just like, look, and this is just one forum. There's forums all throughout the internet. There are congregations everywhere. So then when I saw them, I'm like, wow, how niche is that? That's powerful. So when we choose who we're reaching, that concept helped tremendously. And it goes along well with the whole land. First we want to land, and then expand. And where we are, where we land in one niche, and we choose to narrow that down, and then we, once we become like a category king, it's a lot easier in a smaller area to rise to the top. But when you're the top of one field, you can go into like other sub-markets, and you can start expanding and taking over territories. It's kind of like you're winning a war. Like you're doing a conquest. You start with something smaller, and you have more resources. Then you go to like a maybe larger city, and then you conquer that one, and each time you're just getting better and better, and then eventually your domain is larger that you could take on a whole nother country. And it's just like that's the land and expand principle. A lot of times we compare our beginning to someone else's end or their middle. And we see these organizations that are so large and flourishing, and they're doing all these things, and we're like, yeah, I want to start like that. But most of these people did not start that way. When you look at Amazing Facts, how did Amazing Facts start?
Radio.
Like that was really niche. That was their modern publishing of their day. And that was the only thing that they did. And they did that for a long time. And I was talking to someone at GYC. He was an Amazing Facts like leader, and he was talking with this other guy, like old school evangelism. And they're like, yeah, Amazing Facts is finding that once radio was so popular and successful, and the direct mail, we'd like bulk mail a whole area and bring them to an event, but it's not working the same as before. Amazing Facts is actually shutting down some of their radio stations because they like just the numbers are just not reaching the people, and they're like, I don't know where to go. I don't know what the next thing is. That's why innovation is so important. But we have to constantly be expanding. One of the greatest dangers to our innovation is success, because once we become successful somewhere, it's harder to change. But choosing who we want, who is the ideal people for us to work with. I have like an idea. Sometimes I question like what that looks like. Usually another thing with choosing who we want has to do with like, we're like, when I was studying about our purpose and our calling and like understanding like why we're here on this earth individually, or personal calling, a lot of it has to do with being to others what we wish we had when we were in their situation. So it's like looking back at a younger version of ourselves. How could we, like, what do we wish we had? What would we wish that we can contribute? Like you were talking about how you grew up without a father, and you see the problem in society has to do with their home, and everything rises falls on leadership, and the father is the house man, the husband of the home, and that's a lot of the issue, the root cause. You're like, man, if we could teach men how to be a man, that would be like, that's the niche, teaching young men how to be men. And then that's a journey that you want to learn. That's a journey you want to take experts to, you want to interview, because it's a process of your own discovery and development, and you're just like documenting that process. That is like, that's that's a worthy aim, but it has to do with like what you wish you had when you were younger. Like, I am so passionate about one of the best decisions I've ever made was choosing to work for God full time and dedicate my life to His service. And I really lacked a lot of mentorship and guidance to know what to do and not to do. And it seems like the few people who have got it figured out, they just kind of hoard that information to themselves and they don't share. So I'm like, I want to, in the Army of Youth, share the things that other people are not sharing. And I see that if I had that, kind of knowing what I know now, 8 years ago, boom, there would have been so much accelerated focused growth. So it just kind of like understand. So like who we want is people who want to, young people, new Christians, who want to work for God. And it was so cool because I was having a conversation with Pastor Smith and I was talking to him about an avatar, and he was, I was telling him about Daniel, our avatar, and he said, we do want to reach our avatar, but we can also speak in a way that it would actually convert other people to become our avatar. And I was like, light bulb moment just like went on, and I was like, whoa, that's profound and so true, because by us speaking about working for God, laboring for Him, improving our talents, someone may want to work for God, but they had no idea about the improving their talents portion of it. So maybe one piece of our message would attract them, but because they're interested in that piece, they start learning more, and then they get to know like the watchwords and the culture and the message. Then they get on this path of continual advancement and development, and they like grow as leaders. It's like they realize, wow, I'm a leader, and then they start going in that direction. So we can actually develop the avatar that we're seeking to reach. I'm like, that's really cool, and it's encouraging. So it actually expands it expands our reach, where we might have 90,000, it actually grows. Oh, there's this, I think it was a remix? No, mass appeal. You know how in our content scorecard, we have that question, does it have a mass appeal?
Yeah.
You know why that mass appeal is there?
In light of this, no.
Good question. It's exactly in light of this why that mass appeal is there, because everything that we're doing with the avatar, we have one person in mind, and we're speaking to that one person, but when we apply like the remix strategy, we can share it in a way that it is intriguing or interesting to others who don't know our ministry, don't know our like publishing platforms, they don't know who we are, or they may not even like fully understand our niche. They might not understand all our avatar, but we're sharing in a way that they can learn, and they're like, whoa, I want to know more. And they're hooked on they take the hook, they go through the content, they're like, this is powerful, and they become, it like awakens an interest in them that they didn't at first have. So what the mass appeal element is actually, it's evangelism. It is actually converting those to become our avatar. So it's like youth. We're creating content to help young people, and so that what problems we're solving for them is attracting youth into our world. But when they come to our worlds, it awakens in them an interest to work for God that they didn't otherwise have. That's mass appeal and conversion. Isn't that powerful? So that's why it's really good for us to identify our values. Like, we're like self-sacrifice. Like, we step out of our comfort zone for Christ. Like, our sister, I thought it was interesting because I don't usually hear people talk about stepping out of their comfort zone, but our sister was starting to recognize she has the call to ministry, Shital, and she's like faced with this decision, and then she's mentioning that really what this is, the thing that is holding her back from doing it, is that I've never done that before. I've never done international. I've never like labored for God like that. And so it's just like, because it's uncomfortable. It's the comfort zone that's preventing soldiers from enlisting in the army of youth. So it makes our message of stepping out of our comfort zone so much more intentional, realizing that that's one of their hurdles from becoming all that God has called them to be. That's one of their hurdles to growth and improving their talent. So it's like, wow, the more we talk about this, it helps people. So what else stood out to you in the video that we watched? Yeah? Uh-huh.
Where do they congregate? That's something I want to figure out myself, because it's all new to me how or where certain people congregate. Because it makes sense that certain people will be attracted to different,
Forums, groups,
Yeah.
channels, clusters of information on the internet.
but like I guess it's out of my comfort zone to look, so that's why that stood out to me.
Why is it out of your comfort zone to look? That's interesting.
That's a good question. It doesn't really come to mind. Like when we were doing that A360 event,
Uh-huh.
you were talking about how there's like a community for like every single topic or interest that you can think of.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, whoa, hold on a second.
Yep.
You're telling me that there's a community out there for people like me who are playing piano and they're trying to get better, and there's like people who are like way up there, and then there are people a little higher, and so then I can like we can all come together and like share and learn and teach. I was like, whoa. Because when I think of social media, I don't really think about that aspect of it.
It's fascinating.
Or the internet. I don't think about that aspect of it. I think, I have to go out and look for everything myself instead of joining a community where I can find those things that I'm interested in and want to learn more about.
Wow.
I don't know why I don't do that, but
Yeah.
it made sense.
Wow, that's really interesting. It does make sense. I'm really glad that you shared that.
I did do that to an extent
Yeah.
in a few places, but
Not intentional.
Not
You weren't aware of the principles that were
Yeah.
governing you, so it would be hard to repeat it on purpose. That's really powerful, and it gives me ideas for videos that I could record. Because there's actually 7 principles of building a community. There's like 7 components, and every thriving community has these 7 components, which I won't go into now, but yeah, that's so true. No matter whatever our interests are that we have, there's he's gonna go into this later, but just because we're talking about it, there's 3 things. There's interest-based, and then there is personality-based. So there's like influencers. And then there is keyword. And you know what really hit me in 2018? What I realized, that the entire internet, all social media, there is only one thing the internet equals community, and the reason why is because everything online is based on information that's clustered based on one of these 3 things here. And even these personalities. Personality can become a keyword. Personality is usually based on interest. Whoever the person is, they got a personal brand and they're working. They cover certain keywords and topics. That's how they develop that. But what I began to realize, because I learned this concept when I was learning about YouTube, how to grow on YouTube. I never saw YouTube as a community. I saw social media, like Facebook and Instagram, and yeah, people gathering together. But YouTube, I thought it was just you subscribe to a channel, you view. I never thought that YouTube was a community that people engage, they feel a part of, that they're like a family. Like, you're not growing a channel, you are growing a community.
Yeah.
That's YouTube. That concept was eye-opening and whoa, we're growing a community. Well, that changes a lot of how the messaging that I share on the videos. I'm like, whoa. So, and once you learn the 7 steps of community, then you're like, okay, I need to interject these 7 principles in all the messagings that we share. And once I got that from YouTube, I'm like, wait a second. Instagram is not growing an Instagram page, it's growing a community. And you're like, whoa. And then, Facebook is not posting information on Facebook and people engaging with it. It's a community you're growing. Not likes to a page, it's a community. And then you get that and you're like, wait a second. All social media is a community. Then you get a bigger view and you start to realize, wait a second. When you're growing a brand, like the Army of Youth, you're not, all brands is a community. And you're not growing awareness of a name. You're not growing a even necessarily a message itself. It's you're just developing community. And then your community as a brand is congregating on YouTube. Your community as a brand is congregating on Instagram, on Facebook. And then you realize that these are just segments of your community. Yes, you want to say something?
Yes. Now that I'm thinking about that, and especially with YouTube, though I didn't realize it then, now I see that the reason that I stuck to and favored different, for example, YouTube channels.
Yeah.
The reason I would go back to them and favor them or have an interest in them was because of those community aspects.
Because you belong to that community. Exactly. And then I was learning this and I'm thinking about, that's so true, because with the thumbnails, when there's consistency, like a brand, and they're consistent with the thumbnails, you recognize it. You can pick it out of a crowd. So when you type in a keyword, you're searching for something on YouTube, and you've got 15 options. The reason why you go to one is because you're connected with the person. You trust, like and trust the person. You have familiarity. Familiarity builds trust. Trust builds preference. And preference determines the impact that you're able to have in their lives. And when I got this, I'm like, wait a second, that's so true. If I had to choose between 15 strangers or 1 or 2 guys that I recognize on YouTube on a specific topic, I'm like, I'm going to go to them every time. Like Sean Cannell. I really like his stuff. He's trying to fix the lighting.
Yeah.
Does that work better?
It's a little better.
A little better? Okay. But yeah, Sean Cannell, he has a YouTube channel, Think Media, or video influencers, and I'm like, whenever I see his face, I'm like, this is the one that I want to listen to, because I know, like, and trust him. He's added value to my life, and I know that he's going to add value again. I can depend on his videos. I don't know all the other people. Even if they got more video views, I'm more inclined to watch his first, because I know, like, and trust him. And that's a personality, and his whole brand, his personal brand, is based off a common video and influence. I'm like, this is brilliant. This makes so much sense. So what we had to do with the Army of Youth is we have to continue to be intentional about recognizing our topic and yeah, where they're congregating, who we're trying to serve, and in terms of also why we choose one group is that it's like I can't. I mean, I'm single, male, 24, about to be 25 this Sabbath, but I'm not going to be able to give people counsel on how to raise your children or how to. I can document the journey that I'm taking, but I'm not going to be able to help them with things that are like how to retire or how to, like, I got to pick the problem, right? So who we can help is the youth. Like, we can help the youth, people who are younger, to figure out how to do what we've done and what we're doing and gather similar people on that journey. And it makes so much sense. And you know, one thing really encouraging that I heard, remember when I went to the influencer event? I realized something. You know, Brendan Richard, he started, I didn't know this, he does a lot of like productivity and leadership stuff, but he started teaching. You know what his very first book that he ever wrote was?
No.
It's called Student Leadership. His audience was to the youth. He started with young people, teaching them leadership. I was like, what? Like, that's interesting. And then he introduced this other guy on the stage who's, I mean, he's got millions and millions of views. And he's like, yeah, this he was doing the introduction, he was talking about how he started with youth. And then Brendan gets up there after he's done talking, he's like, you know what? I just want to tell every one of you, there is not a single speaker who has like made an impact in the world that did not start working with youth. And then, like, when he said that, it like opened my eyes so much. I was like, what is going on here? I'm like, this is interesting. You mean that's a principle? Like, that's a law? That's a thing? And then you probably didn't catch it, but the A360 event with Pete Vargas, what did he say? He was going to school for business, and then he got a call from his pastor. He's like, hey, we need a youth pastor. Can you come back to this small town, say goodbye to your large paycheck and your promised business, and come grow this youth group? And he's like, okay, he heard the call to ministry, and he started with youth. And I'm starting to realize more and more and more that all these people, they started with young people. And then it's like being faithful in that which is least. If you can be faithful with the youth, you'll be faithful with like adults and grow and be able to reach more. It's a land and expand concept. And that's in Luke 16. Oh, that's cool. This is my favorite verse. What do you think about that, Conrad?
How does that tie with Luke 16?
Because Luke 16 says, if you are faithful in that which is least, you'll be faithful also in much.
Yes.
If you're unfaithful in that which is least, you'll be unfaithful in that which is much. Because the landing is pick a niche which is least. It's a specific group, and then when you're faithful, you become the category king of that niche. That is like, you are the authority, like the army of youth becomes the authority of that category. And once we're faithful in the least niche, then we can expand incrementally to take on more responsibility and expand in another niche. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And usually when we're picking a niche, we want to choose the niche that resonates with us the most, that is so much like us. Like, oh, the guy, Pat Quinn. Did you hear his testimony? I got this in light of what we were talking about. I was like, that was powerful. Pat Quinn was teaching. He was a teacher, and he would help people who were marginalized, or it sounded like he was a special ed teacher, or someone who were troubled or something, and help their voice to be heard, or help them to grow and to develop, and that's what he wanted. And so that's why he got into teaching those marginalized youth. And he was teaching youth. And now he's teaching influencers who are influencing millions. But he started with the youth. Did you catch that? I'm just like, this is incredible. So I was listening to his testimony. I'm like taking notes. I'm like, this is amazing. I was typing. And then, so he wanted to switch. He saw the vision of his future, a compelling vision, that his future can have a greater impact if he was not a teacher in the school system, but if he was he taught communicators. He helped people with marginalized voices or have powerful messages to be heard. That's what he wants. And so he wanted to get into the training of speakers and public speakers, but in order to do that, what did he do? He landed and expanded. He saw, who do I know? Who can I help? Who closely associates with me? Who am I? He took inventory. He says, I am a teacher right now. So what am I going to do? I'm going to help teachers to get out of the teaching industry and start getting into the speaking industry, helping other teachers like me do what I've done. And right now, he's just landed. He just barely landed. And he hasn't done a lot, but he can help someone else do what he did. So if you know 3rd grade math, you can teach 2nd graders how to do 2nd grade math, how to do what you've done. So that's what he did. He started with the people he was most united with, and then he started to get more testimonials and from people he was helping. So he's growing his portfolio of people he's helping, like teachers, all these teachers who are becoming public speakers, then other people, and then he's expanding. Now he is, well, before that, he expands. He was the category king, the authority. Like, he is the go-to person. If you're a teacher and you want to become a public speaker, Pat Quinn's your guy. And once he's the authority there, it's easier to expand incrementally into another niche, where now he's helping not just teachers, but, teachers and dentists or something. I don't remember what he said after that, but that was the concept. It's the same principle. All these people, what we often compare ourselves to is like the Facebooks, the amazing facts, the amazing discoveries, people with hundreds of thousands or millions of people that are being reached. And we're like, I'm going to start like that. Like, they didn't start like that. Not just nonsense. So, like the verse, they that compare themselves among themselves are not wise. We don't want to do that. We got to be faithful now, that's why this is one of the core foundations of the Army of Youth, because this lies at the foundation of success in all lines, in living our calling, in being a young person. When we are faithful at the beginning of our life, this is how we'll expand to be able to have that impact that God wants to reach the world through us. Is that powerful or what? Yeah. So, who is someone that we don't want to work with? I put down people that are not open-minded. Because if you're not open-minded, like, we really don't have much to do for you. Like, we can't argue with you. We can't... A man persuaded against his will is of the same opinion still. So it's just like, we're not here to convince people. What I find interesting about what this guy said is he's at a place in his life where he realizes, like, he didn't want to work with poor people. He wanted to work with people with fat wallets, or people who can afford his services. And like, I could see that. And Jesus said, go to the highways and the byways. Christ Object Lessons mentions that the highways is the higher classes. Jesus said, go to the higher classes first. When you reach the higher classes, they're able to fund the work and the ministry so you can go forth and reach the lower classes and do all those things. So when you niche, when you narrow to those who can afford your services, that enables you to reach other people. But if you just focus on the poor folk and you're constantly laboring and only doing that, then like you're not able to really fulfill the mission that you're actually seeking out to do, because you lack the resources to do it. Kellogg was a Battle Creek Battle Creek. I'm thinking of Battlefield Hollywood with Little Lights, but Battle Creek Sanitarium was like a health resort, health spa, health. It was a sanitarium where the presidents and the the CEOs of like Fortune 50 companies, or the top in the world at that time, like J.C. Penney's, when they got sick, they went over there. I mean, they were serving higher classes. They were helping the wealthy. But because of those funds, Dr. Kellogg was able to establish orphanages, and he was able to take care of those that were poor. And so he was reaching the higher and lower, but by reaching the higher classes, you can reach all others. And I realized that this is one thing that I learned in Washington D.C. I was like amazed, because like that was like a multi-$100,000 like multiple six-figure endeavor that we did, and I'm like, what minister do I know that can raise that type of funds to be able to do ministry? I'm like, I don't know anyone. But I saw the things that we were able to do was unlike any other form of work that I've done before. I'm like, whoa, I've done ministry as a poor missionary. I've done ministry with funds, and I realized you can reach a whole lot more souls with funds than you can without it. And a lot of people, they feel that it's evil to like go reach the higher classes, but and when you think about it, it almost seems like a sinful neglect that we are neglecting the higher classes. Who is reaching those people? A lot of times we feel because they're a doctor, a lawyer, a minister, some higher class, that like, well, we don't want to reach them. Let's go share with people because our faith is so low, and we're like, we'll share with these people that haven't really done much with their life, or they're poor or not men of influence, and because we believe that we can, but we don't believe we can reach someone who has like 100 or has like 500,000 followers on Instagram. And it's like, if they can turn to Christ, imagine them bringing their congregation to Christ with the 30 Inches message. So it's powerful.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I honestly like question, like in terms of like our avatar with the Army of Youth, like how does that work? How do we do that? I've also heard the concept, this is from Ryan Dice. He mentions how one company could have multiple avatars, which a different avatar would require a different funnel. So you gotta be careful not having so much avatar. But I was just thinking like maybe one avatar for like it, like for me that's a genuine question that I was wondering. It's like the higher classes, I don't want to say verses, but lower classes, I don't know if it's like and or, but in choosing the avatar, it's always one of those things, because there's two things that you have to consider. There's, when choosing your avatar, one, are they willing to pay for your service? Because one of the issues that people have when starting a company or a business or a product or service or something, or even a ministry, a lot of people think like, I've got the solution to this problem, it's going to solve a lot of people's issues. But then it's like, do they have a group of people, or do they have an avatar that is willing to pay for their service? They're willing to support the work, willing to actually like want the product thing that they have to offer. That's not everyone wants that. But then you might have someone who is willing. That's why people that are open-minded, it's like if we wanted to reach I just think that like, so modern publishing is a big emphasis that we have, and there are some minds that are just so closed that they just do not want to hear modern publishing, which I think COVID-19 really changed a lot of that. But some people are just not interested at all. So when you try to just spin your wheels, well, I think what Paul, the apostle, said, kicking against the pricks, it's like you got to pick your battles. And there are some that are so open, thirsty, and willing, and ripe, and ready. So it's like, let's work with the willing. And let's walk with the walkers, jog with the joggers, and sprint with the sprinters. Like, I'd rather run with one than carry 1,000. Because that one, Jesus had a faithful regard for the one soul audience, and that one soul took it could share with thousands of people. So when we understand the power of working with the willing, it changes everything. A lot of people in evangelism are trying to say, nobody's interested in the gospel, they don't want to hear about Jesus, and they're just like, I tried, but it just kept saying no. I knocked on 100 doors, 99 of them shut their faces on me, their doors on my face, and it's just like, Well, are you working with the willing? There's so many ripe and ready and thirsty. That's like with Discord. So you get on Discord, are those people willing? Are they thirsty? Are they asking questions? Do they want to know about the third angel's message?
Some of them, yeah.
I'd say a lot of them are. And part of the process is because they've already been filtered. They've gone through a funnel. They've gone through from America to Babylon, so they're acquainted with the principles of the truth of the third angel's message. And all they really need is someone to come in and fill in the gaps. They're really easy people to work with because they're already aware of what we're sharing. It's not as shocking. And so that's something to consider. But as far as like, there's the Direction from God program. I mean, I think about that. Our avatar is like 16 to 25. How much fun does a 16 to 25-year-old have?
Usually not much.
Usually not much. So that's where the next question comes in. Are they able to pay for our services? Because young people could be willing, like they'd be like signing up for the program. They're like, I need this, but are they able to pay for that service? It's that's a question. It's a question I've been thinking about. And what Dan is sharing too, he's like, yeah, I mean, I was working with people from all sorts of different stuff, and I was making six figures, but when I like stopped working with everyone and started narrowing my focus and niche, then he started working with people that were able. He's like, I love poor people. I was poor. But that mindset, like, he had another podcast where he was explaining too, he's like, the mindset of those who are not entrepreneurial, like, I only want to work with entrepreneurial minded because those people, they don't get what they need, and they're going to be the ones who are constantly looking at the problems, are going to be looking at obstacles, they're looking at the challenges, and they're just like, they will be some of the most needy and complaining students that you have to work with, than those who are like entrepreneurial minded. They're like, alright, see a challenge? Well, then we just need to overcome it. It's like, I see a problem? Well, there's a solution. I don't know what it is, but the mindset is different. So he's like choosing the characteristics. So I guess the values too kind of determines, like, our values will attract others with similar values when we're intentional with those. And here's a thought. Often the people that are the higher classes that are able to afford things are like baby boomers. They tend to have some of the larger funds. But now the world is shifting where who is taking up 2/3 of the workforce right now, currently? Millennials. Millennials occupy 2/3 of the workforce. And they are the largest generation since the baby boomers. And a lot of baby boomers are dying out, but the millennials are just taking over the world. And they are currently right now the leaders of this nation. So I think that generation is going to be more able to afford it, but millennials are thinking less and less like they're a youth. So here's what I was thinking. What if we had two avatars? Where we reach the higher classes and we give them messaging like donors, that the higher classes could be the donors to help support the lower classes, which would kind of be like the youth that are just getting started on their life. If they can see the vision and support the youth, then we can help these to become the higher classes. Which are leaders, men of influence, responsibility, men of financial ability, and spiritual, moral, physical ability. We're just trying to move people over here on the high calling in Christ Jesus. That would require like a donor funnel, a partnership program. I don't know. Do you have any suggestions how to like wrap the mind around the youth not being able to? It's one of those things. Oh, and you know what one of the greatest needs, the greatest desires of the millennials are?
Purpose.
I and mentorship, which go very close together. Like the millennials are like a generation without mentors, and they yearn for it. Like there was studies that were like they not interviewed, they questioned, but they asked like thousands of millennials this mentorship type questions, and like huge numbers of them were expressing that that is a strong, powerful motivator. That all of them want mentors. I'm like, wow, it's really powerful. So this information age that we're doing, this information that we're offering, could be really powerful for them.
Yeah.
Like you're saying direction. Like, man, you basically named the Direction from God program. So, but you know why I chose the 16 to 25?
Why?
Because the thing about millennials is they may be able to afford things and help, but they've already made their decision for their education, for their career, for their marriage and family. They're starting families. They got little children, 1-year-olds, 2-year-olds. So they've already done those decisions. We want to get them before they make that decision and help them to dedicate themselves to Christ's service. And millennials, it's kind of too late. Like everything that you get, it's like a stake in the ground. Like when you don't have those things, you're a free agent. You're able to move wherever you want. But when you get a wife, the stake is in the ground. And then you get property, the stake is deeper in the ground. Then you got children, now the stake is in the ground. And now your stake is like so deep that you're not able to move. And it's harder for you to work for God. It's harder for you to dedicate yourself to Christ. And when you go to school, you've got the debt. So now you've got this massive debt looming over you. So it's much harder to work for God and dedicate yourself for ministry. You'd have to work for God in spite of some of these things. But you can work for God in like different ways in your own capacity, but not the same type if a youth from like 16 to 25 dedicates their lives to His service. There's so much more that could be accomplished. There's no limit to what they can do. So that's part of the reason why and from that age group, you know what they have? Like more than anyone else?
Time.
You got it. Time is our most valuable asset. And I believe like that age is like some of the most precious times of their life. The most important times of their life, because that's when decisions are being made, and their decision determines their destiny. So if we can teach them biblical decision making from 16 to 25 and just really help them to gain that skill and the faculties of the mind and understand vision for the future and what God's plan and His will is for their life, then that could lay a foundation for the rest of their life. They don't have mentors. There's no voices that is teaching them these things. And so there's a huge void. They got time, which also means that not only are they willing to volunteer, but they're willing and able. They're able to volunteer. Millennials may be willing, but they are so maxed out. Like, look at Brother Mike. He's like working with his family. He's willing. He's just not able, time-wise. Financially, it can help. So when you look at customers in ministry, I realize that the watchwords remixing is really helpful. And I realize that we don't call anyone customers, but our equivalent would be like donors. We got volunteers. We've got students. We've got, and I appreciate you talking with me about this. It really helps me to process things. Affiliates. When I look at these, was there something else on there?
It's partners.
That would kind of be like a donor.
Okay.
It would be. Those would be partners synonymous.
Partners Anonymous?
No, partners synonymous with donors. Yeah, I mean, we could start calling them partners too. Okay, so let's just say we have those four. Basically, those four, they're like quote unquote customers. They're not customers, but in that terminology that helps us like process this. what's encouraging is the Madison College, the True Education Blueprint, they had what was called a work program. So they were on Ripley's Believe It or Not, because people would go to Madison with nothing, and they'd get their education, and they would leave with a vehicle and like $1,000 in the bank. Not only did they not leave with debt, but they left with greater increase of things, skills, training, education, and finances than when they left. It was on Ripley's Believe It or Not as like just a baffle to the world. They're like, how is this school doing that? Because every other school, you leave with nothing and leave with so much worse than nothing. Now you're chained by all this debt. What are you doing differently? But they were following God's education, his blueprint that he gave to ancient Israel. So that was encouraging. Where the youth, 16 to 25, are not, they're willing to work. They're willing to learn. And they're like sponges soaking this stuff up. Millennials don't have time to like learn and do those things. But they're able to donate their time, but they can't donate their funds. But that's why they had a workers program. You know why Madison was able to support and financially like help those people that were involved?
Why?
Because Madison College did something totally different than any other school. They connected with industries, with businesses, and with trades. So because they had income-producing activities for the students to actually learn by doing, theirs was apprenticeship, it was discipleship, it was actually engaged in like the publishing trade at Madison was like, no, you're actually going to take the typesets, you're going to publish, like we are selling these publications, they're going out, books are going all over the place, and you're going to operate, you're going to learn how to operate the printing press that is actually going and blessing the world, and with all this literature and distribution. So in doing that, you are participating in the business evangelism, gaining the skill as a publisher, and you are you're going to take that to the world. And because it's generating the funds, they are able to cover their expenses. That was their workers program. They actually required people. This is so cool. They required students to work for half of their tuition. You could not pay for all your tuition. You could only pay for half of it, and the other half, you worked it off. That was their motto, because they understood true education, you have to learn by doing. And this is so cool. And then let's say you didn't have the other half of the tuition, they had business evangelism, so you can work like you would a job or whatever. You'd work, and that would go towards your tuition to cover your expenses of food and rent and education and all those other things as you're working towards that. Which is like, wow, is that profound or what?
Yeah.
So they could do that. So that when we're looking at like our the army of youth and the students who are willing but they can't pay, they can volunteer, they could work, labor, get the education, they could become students in the workers program. And really, time is far more valuable than money. Lending their time is far greater than a monthly donation or any other, like paying for a course or whatever. It's more valuable to them and to us, and everybody wins. This is helping me to understand a little bit more. Because when you look at our products too, the product is volunteer opportunity. It's our courses and the colporter work. So it was through colporter selling the publications that was one of the industries that they were able to afford their tuition through college. And that's what the affiliate program is. You just take our trainings, you're an affiliate, you share with other people, and you can receive 50% commissions. You're learning a valuable skill. And we're told in the book Colporter Ministry, Colporter Evangelist, that the colporter work, being an affiliate, is among the greatest preparation that you can have for ministry. Because the skills you learn as an affiliate, as a colporter, drastically improves your social skills, your interactions. And really what that is, it's sales. I was a door-to-door sales. So when you understand sales and persuasion, how the human mind works, how to speak to others, that prepares you to work in ministry where you are dealing with minds and eternal decisions, and you're closing on ideas, you're selling ideas, and you're helping people to make changes in their lives that are beneficial to them. Completely transferable skills. So maybe donors and students, as far as online goes, might be like baby boomers and millennials, because they don't have their time element. But baby boomers have a lot of time too. They have a lot of time and they have means, but the difference is they're not technical. Some of them are willing, but they've never been taught. They grew up in a world where there wasn't technology. We grew up in a world that, we never have been in a world that didn't have the internet. So I'm trying to figure out how to piece all these generations together. How can we collaborate together? And that was something you want to know about in the leadership podcast, huh?
Yeah.
Did you learn something about the different generations a little bit today? It's okay if you didn't.
Well, I learned something, but what I'm really wondering is how we work together.
That's something that I really had to figure out, because when pastoring the church over here, we had baby boomers, the last generations, millennials, and we had Gen Z. We had multi-generations of leadership, of people actually bearing responsibilities, and it was like, whoa, how are we communicating? How are we getting along? And it's and then I noticed some of the challenges by listening to those podcasts. I began to understand, this is why we're struggling. This is how they think. This is how we think. It was this is how we can co-work, we can collaborate together. I'm we just need to understand each other better. And it makes a big difference. Multi-generations. We should do a daily live video on that. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So where they congregate is actually pretty simple. We can find that. He's going to show us more. But in closing, we've got to figure out who we want and who we want to serve. We have a general idea. Let me ask you, based on what you know, who do you see that we're serving? I don't know if it's just clear in mine or if it's clear in yours too.
Who's our avatar?
Yeah, who's our avatar?
So age is 16 to 25. They're wanting to work for God.
Yeah.
Work for God. They need direction in life. They're at a crossroads.
Oh, crossroads! I never heard it like that, but that's so true. What else?
Crossroads.
Wow, that's deep. That's true. Who do they listen to?
Now that's a question. Who do they listen to?
Well, let's backtrack. What religion are they?
Christian.
You know what I was thinking about the Christian? I was trying to think at first I was thinking Adventist, then I was like, no, then I want to do Christian. But then as I consider it, I'm trying to figure out, should we do Christian or Adventist? Christian is huge. Adventist is less, but there's still lots that we could share with. But then like the land and expand, you consider like who are you most closely associated with, and if you start with them, become the authority there, and then expand, it's easier to expand in those other areas. And when you really look at like the different denominations, there's a lot of Christians with a lot of different beliefs and ideas and concepts, and like just between two denominations like the Orthodox Church, the Angelical Church, and then the Pentecostal Church, like one's close to Catholic, one's like just super like energetic and just totally different, hugely different. So the way that we'd speak to one is totally different terminology than the ways that we'd speak to another.
That's true.
But we don't really like know the terminology, like deep psychographic like terminology. It's like we clearly don't belong to their community. So that's going to be a learning curve for us. So what I consider is like, as I'm thinking like who we can help the most, it seems like if we start with young Adventists, but all of our messaging can apply to every Christian, then we can land in the Adventist community and expand in all the different denominations. And from the very beginning, we are always open to whatever denomination, and we're not going to be saying things that are repelling them away, but we're definitely going to, I mean, it's kind of hard because if you try to be all things to all people, like you end up attracting none. So that's something I'm trying to balance, but that was starting to make sense in my mind. And if we start with Adventists, attract that would be really easy to follow. Like we could become the authority for the youth, like USC or something, and then expand in other places. What do you think about that?
It makes sense.
Makes sense. And out of all the youth, what kind of youth you think would be most inclined to want to work for God?
Out of all of them?
Out of all the Christian youth that you know of.
That I know of. I guess it would be Adventist.
That's a key word, that you know of. Because you don't really know of a lot of the
I
other.
don't know.
Neither do I. So that's another reason why I was thinking to start there and then expand. Because by starting there we can learn and see the nuances. But if we're trying to study the youth of all denominations, that can be really challenging to try to grasp and like. And what I've found is that it seems like a lot of youth in other denominations, the thought that they should dedicate themselves to Christ, the stories that they're hearing growing up, are not really the same stories that we are. We're hearing about these young pioneers that are like establishing this this church in their youth, or we're hearing about like Daniel, we're hearing about like the child preachers in Geneva, who are just like preaching the first angel's message, and then like we're like hearing these stories and be like, wow, I want to, like, the urgency of evangelism is so heavy upon us. I don't think evangelism is a huge emphasis for every denomination. Quite a few of them they do, but the youth seem like they have different priorities.
Yeah.
And even in our circles too, there's different priorities. But it seems easier to find them, the specific interested ones to work for God in our community.
I turned the air conditioner on.
I feel that.
Is the window closed right there?
Yes. What else do you see?
Do you mind if I sit there?
What else do you see who we could help? I mean, what do you understand about the Avatar? Just based on what you know.
New Christians.
New Christians? Sounds good. Because it's not just Christian. New Christians. Why are we choosing new Christians?
Because they're searching for how to live and what direction they should go in and stuff. They're not settled into their way or somebody else's way.
Does that mean we want to repel old Christians?
No.
Oh, you
Repel them.
you missed it. Do we want to repel anyone?
Well, what do you mean by repel?
Carmen, what does it mean by repel? That was his aha moment.
There are people that we don't want to invite.
I'm glad you joined us. You missed like the first half an hour that was all talking about repelling people. So we do want to repel people. But
Repel? What do you mean by repel? What's that mean?
all marketing is attracting those who you want, repelling those who you don't want. We can't be all things to everyone.
If you're attracting new Christians, then that would automatically mean that you're repelling the old ones.
You've got it! Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the only way that by attracting new Christians we would reach the old is if they humble themselves and be as a child and be as a new Christian. And I believe that God wants to renew our heart day by day, and every day we can have a new Christian experience.
Are you guys recording?
Yes, we are. This is a powerful
It's like they're not so set in their ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So, and old Christians would be more inclined to be more set in their ways and not open-minded. Oh, so would open-minded be someone we want to work with?
Yeah.
Somebody pliable.
Well, I think pliable has a bad connotation.
Does it?
So someone who is
Teachable.
teachable. There you go. Yeah, 'cause you could be teachable, but still not pliable. Pliable could be for good or for bad.
Yeah, but all children come out that way.
They do. They
Yeah.
do. Yeah. We want to teach
Moldable.
people. We want to teach the youth to not be pliable, to shun that character.
Yeah. And we want to cut them off before they go to college. Yeah.
Oh, so then we're looking for them before college.
Yes. And there's some children or young Christians that they're looking for friends. They're looking
Accountability.
Accountability. Accountability and friendship.
for
Wow, this is good.
and a lot of them they're like looking where to go. What should I do with my life?
Life calling.
Yeah, they're in search of that. It's nice to get them when they're like that.
Interesting.
And people who are willing to work too, not just learners.
Youth just have like this intense energy that they're ready to like take on the world.
Wow.
They're so ambitious.
Yeah.
A lot of youth are.
Some of them is not.
You know what's interesting? We could put on here depressed.
Why?
Because I mean, they fit a lot of those characteristics. But who we determine to help is the type of people we're going to work with.
But we want people who are missionaries, not mission filled, right?
Work for God, so mission minded. Yeah.
So you don't.
There's some missionaries that are depressed.
Yeah, there is. There's like an extent of depression, though.
The reason why I threw that out there is just to like show us that what we choose to put on here is, like, mark my words, these are the people who will be showing up in our comments. We're going to be showing up on our videos and going to be reaching out to our pages.
That's good.
We're going to see more of these people on the team. Who do we want to work with? So then even like our values. Like that's why choosing our values, which I still feel that our values are a little like, they're under like development, but our values will attract people who are like us. So we have to be very intentional to determine our Army of Youth values.
Yeah, we want to find leaders in the making.
Leaders. Yeah. Leaders.
They'll go out there and teach people.
That's right. And that's why, like what Carmen and I were talking about, mass appeal, people don't see themselves as leaders yet.
Yeah.
They could become inspired to become them, and we can give them the training.
But even if they don't see themselves as leaders, you can see those qualities in them. You
Yeah,
know,
it's
because
true.
they're dedicated and they're
Yeah, like Susie.
on.
Susie is a leader, whether she realizes it or not. Like, she is consistent, she's faithful, she wants to serve people, and I mean, those are great qualities.
Well, that's what you should put up there too, that they want to serve people.
Yes. Servants. Would that be connected with working for God?
Yeah. All of it would.
Because we dedicate to the Lord's service.
Yeah.
Talents. Oh, growth-minded. Like they want to grow.
But who doesn't want to grow?
Old Christians.
I don't know about that.
I don't know. And I don't mean old by age, I just mean old by mind. Like an old mind wants to just like sit there and like, I've arrived, I've already gone so far, I've done my thing. Like, when I first became a Christian, I was so on fire. I sold all my video games at $700 in 4 days, spent $500 on Bible study books, getting ready to go take them out to everybody. And as I'm like sharing them with people, I shared them with my best friend's like foster mom. And you know what that mother said? She's a Christian. She's like, oh, how sweet. You're on fire for Christ. I remember when I was like that. That'll wear off. I was like, what? You mean to tell me that this great joy and this happiness, like this is going to wear off? No. It's like, I didn't say this, but I felt like, get thee behind me, Satan. Now savors not the things of God. Because I'm like, the reason why, like, one of the things that like drew me to Christ is I wanted joy, I wanted peace, I wanted fulfillment. But and she's telling me like, oh, all that stuff that you have, that's gonna like, you're gonna lose that love. And I'm like, you lost your first love? And you profess to be a Christian? It's like, how can you know Christ for so long and say that that's gonna wear off? Like, if this wears off, that would be like me losing my reason to live. Because before this love for Christ, I had no definite aim. I had no reason to exist. I wanted to kill myself. And it's like, you're telling me that this is going to wear off? I was like repulsed with the thought. I'm like, there's no way. So like, that is a type of mind that it like, who is convinced that's going to wear off, and that's not really like, that's not something to keep or to guard, or that's not like danger. Like, those are the people that's like, yeah, I mean, it's not really the people we want to work with. I mean, people, we want to wake them from their lethargy, and we can have a mass appeal. But as far as targeting, we want to target those who wants to keep their first love.
You know, it reminds me when I first had a baby, and I was in a room with a lady, and she's so happy about her baby, and she's like counting his toes and stuff. And I was thinking, wow, how come I don't have that love for my baby? How come I don't feel that way toward my baby? And I cried so hard. And a nurse came in because I was supposed to feed him, but I didn't get up to go feed him. And she goes, why don't you get up and go feed your baby? I said, look at her, she's so happy about her baby. I said, how come I don't feel that way? And she said, oh, she goes, you'll feel that way. She goes, the baby's a stranger to you. And you don't know what it's going to be like or anything, but you will. You're going to fall in love with that baby. Shortly after that, I fell in love with that baby. I couldn't even imagine life without that baby. So when somebody says that that's going to wear off, it's like your child you fall more and more in love with.
That's
you don't
right.
like
You
fall
grow deeper and stronger.
Yeah, you don't like say, okay, that's over, and it goes away. You fall more in love with it.
That's the path of the just. Proverbs 4:18, that shines more and more to the perfect day. That's a desire to grow. You know, what about being on fire for Christ, passionate, enthusiastic, or like energetic? Like,
You certainly need energy when you're working for the Lord.
we do. And that's one of the traits for being a man, is being energetic, which is connected with diligence. And we should pray for energy and cheerfulness every day. And I read that in the Young Man's Counselor. It was powerful. He's like, saying energy. I'm like, what? An energy that's going to look at an avalanche of obstacle and just stand for the truth, and is going to persevere. And it's like, whoa, I'm like, that sounds intense. But I know that there's another company that they're doing really good, did over $1 billion in sales. And one of their core values, one of their like 6 or something, 7, was enthusiasm. It's like they value enthusiasm here. If you're not enthusiastic about what you do, we don't want to work with you. And it's like they will, like, even if you could be extremely highly qualified and talented, they're like, if you're not enthusiastic, you don't have a place here.
It's like what we were reading today in the and what's the name of that book? Living Fountains and Broken Cisterns.
Mm-hmm.
And because of their education, it affected our lives, you know. And the people that we're seeking after, we want them to affect in a positive way the lives of everybody that we come across.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A savor of life and delight.
Yeah.
An atmosphere that we carry around with us. That's our culture. The values determines our culture. And if you have one bad rotten apple in the bucket, it's going to contaminate all the good apples. So that bad apple needs to be removed.
You're scaring me.
Don't get scared. Just turn to Jesus. Repent. But no, I mean, this is good for us to reflect on ourselves, because it's like when you set the values before, it's like you are a gospel soldier. This is what a gospel soldier is. This is what a gospel soldier is not. And it's like, welcome to the army of youth. You are now a gospel soldier. This is your new identity in Christ. So you are going to be stepping into this identity, and in all your interactions with the army of youth, we are helping you to become this. And you may not like feel it right now, but when you claim your identity in Christ today, you are now a gospel soldier. So now they like get the t-shirt and it's like, I am a gospel soldier. And they know what it means because we've like defined it for them through our values. That is so cool.
That is.
I'm excited about this. Okay, so I think we got some clarity on our avatar, and we'll keep on keeping on. So I'm glad we're going through the process that he's talking about. So we're knowing a little bit more of who we are. Kamran, you don't realize how much you helped me by allowing me to work through this stuff. You really helped me a lot. This is the most clarity I've had for a long time. I've been processing things, but it goes through my mind. If I'm not able to communicate, it's really hard to figure this stuff out. So thank you, brother. Let's close with a word of prayer. Who wants to pray for us? Cameron, can you pray for us?
Okay.
Alright, cool.
Father in heaven, thank you, Lord, for this session, what we learned and what we were able to discuss, and the clarity that you're giving us. We ask for, Lord, we thank you for it, and we thank you for just giving us this great privilege to work with you and for you. And Lord, we ask for wisdom on how to move forward today, and how to reach the souls that need direction, that need guidance, that need accountability, that are at a crossroads in their life. Help us, Lord, to help them to make the right decisions. And Lord, we thank you for the privilege, for the opportunity, and for growth, and just blessing us with life and breath and all things. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Praise the Lord.
The best time to get them is right now.
Right now.
They just got out of school.
I know, just before summer. I was thinking about that too. If we get them before college, it's summertime. They're like, what am I going to do for the summer? And it's like...